The summer of '96 was supposed to be the season of my liberation from the confines of adolescence. Little did I know that it would become an encounter with the unknown that would reshape not just my summer, but my entire life. It all began, innocently enough, at a seemingly ordinary summer camp tucked away in the heart of a dense forest. Campfire tales of Bigfoot and other cryptids served as our nightly entertainment, but we could never anticipate the mind-boggling and indeed life-altering circumstances we were about to find ourselves in. As a scrawny, bespectacled teenager, I was more likely to be found with a book than a ball. My idea of adventure was delving into the pages of science fiction novels, not sweating it out on a football field. I was content to stay within my comfort zone, despite the occasional ribbing from my more athletically inclined peers. One moonlit night, after a day of bug hunts and s'mores, my friends and I decided to sneak out of our cabins for a midnight hike. We stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. Before I could fathom the strangeness of the sight, a sensation of weightlessness overcame me. The ground disappeared, and I found myself suspended in midair. When I regained my senses, I was in a metallic chamber bathed in an otherworldly luminescence. My heart raced as I took in the sight of the creatures before me, towering insectoid beings with shimmering exoskeletons. Their eyes glowed like twin galaxies, and their movements were as graceful as they were unsettling. Fear surged through me, but I was immobilized, unable to resist their grip. Communication was achieved not through words, but through a form of telepathic understanding. They probed my thoughts, memories, and emotions. Strangely, I felt an odd connection with them, as if they were unraveling layers of my being, peeling back the veneer of my insecurities. Despite my fear, I sensed a touch of empathy in their actions. Time blurred as they delved deeper into my consciousness. And then, as abruptly as it had begun, the probing ceased. With a final penetrating gaze, they released me. I fell to the ground, dazed and disoriented, as the chamber shimmered and vanished. I was left alone in the clearing, my mind a whirlwind of confusion. In the days that followed, I struggled to make sense of the encounter. The once familiar world around me seemed different, altered somehow. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside me. A newfound sense of determination and confidence burned within, urging me to step outside my comfort zone. When school started and football tryouts loomed on the horizon, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable just weeks before. Armed with an unshakable resolve, I walked onto the field, the laughter of my classmates echoing in my ears. I wasn't just battling for a spot on the team. I was fighting against the doubts that had plagued me for years. As I sprinted, caught, and tackled with an agility I didn't recognize in myself, the jeers turned to gasps of astonishment. The transformation was undeniable. Somehow, the encounter with the enigmatic insectoids had left me changed, physically and mentally. My body moved with a precision and grace that defied explanation, and my mind was sharper than ever. Weeks passed, and I became the underdog story of the season. My metamorphosis from a bookish nerd to a football prodigy was nothing short of miraculous. As the victories piled up, so did the whispers of disbelief. I couldn't blame my peers for their skepticism. I hardly recognized the person I had become, but within me, I carried the memory of that fateful night. The memory of the insectoid beings and their probing presence. They had ignited something within me, an untapped potential that had always been there, but had remained dormant until that pivotal encounter. The championship game arrived, and I found myself standing on the precipice of glory. The same friends who had shared that eerie night with me now cheered from the bleachers, their faces a mix of pride and disbelief. With each play, each run, I felt the energy of the insectoids coursing through me, a reminder of the profound connection we had shared. As the final whistle blew and our team emerged victorious, I couldn't help but smile. The same woods that had once seemed ordinary were now the backdrop to a story that defied explanation. The insectoid beings had bestowed upon me a gift that went beyond physical prowess. They had shown me the power that resided within me all along.
Working as a documentary cameraman for a cable channel wasn't always as exciting as people imagined. The brief sounded simple. Shoot a reality show named Hazardous Catch. This meant 6 weeks on a boat in the blistering cold of Alaska during its harshest winter. I had prepared myself for the biting cold, the merciless waves, and the looming sense of isolation. But nothing could have prepared me for what awaited us in the Alaskan waters. The first 2 weeks were smooth sailing, literally. The skies stretched out endlessly, painted in hues of icy blue and soft gray. The vastness of the sea was both humbling and awe-inspiring. The crew was upbeat, and we had some great footage. But as we entered the third week, the waters grew restless. The boat was tossed about like a toy, and the crew members tightened their grip on anything solid. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow amidst the darkening skies, I decided to capture some B-roll of the churning waters. I adjusted my lens, focusing on the contrast between the dark waves and the last rays of the setting sun. But a sudden burst of light blinded my viewfinder. Squinting, I looked up to see a colossal flying saucer descending upon us. The vessel was sleek and metallic, gleaming even in the diminishing light. It hovered above the water, emanating a soft hum that resonated with the waves. What struck me first was its uncanny resemblance to every sci-fi movie I had ever seen. It looked too real, too tangible. Not a shred of CGI, but undeniably right there. The crew was paralyzed, their eyes fixed on the hovering craft. As I steadied my camera, preparing to document what could be the story of the century, a beam of pale blue light shot down from the saucer, enveloping the boat. My camera went haywire, distorting the footage and emitting a sharp, static sound. The cold around us intensified, biting into our very bones. Panic ensued, but our shouts and screams were drowned out by the deep humming of the craft. Then, just as suddenly, the light retracted, and the saucer ascended into the vastness of the sky, disappearing from view. The boat, which had been eerily still under the beam's influence, now rocked violently. Many of us were thrown off our feet. The remainder of our trip was filled with whispered conversations and sleepless nights. No one spoke of the saucer aloud, but the fear in their eyes was evident. My footage from that evening was distorted and static-filled, with only brief flashes of the saucer. Upon our return, I hesitated to share my story, fearing ridicule or disbelief. But late one evening, I received an anonymous email. The message was short and chilling. "We know what you saw. Stay silent." I often lie awake at night, haunted by the memory of that evening. The vastness of the sea no longer feels humbling. It feels threatening, concealing secrets far beyond our comprehension. I've hung up my camera since then, but the images from that fateful day remain etched in my mind, a constant reminder of the unknown mysteries of our universe.
When I was 12, we moved to a house on the outskirts of a small town called Pine Creek. The house was surrounded by woods, and the closest neighbor was at least a mile away. It was quiet, too quiet, but we cherished the serenity. One evening as I lay in bed, I noticed a soft, pulsating blue light filtering through the gaps in my curtains. My bedroom was on the second floor, and it overlooked the backyard and the dense forest beyond. Curious, I tiptoed to the window and gently pulled the curtains apart. Floating above the tree line was a hovering object. Unlike any aircraft I had seen, it was a perfect orb, and its luminescent blue glow painted the trees in ethereal shades. I was mesmerized. Rubbing my eyes, I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it some new military technology? Or maybe kids playing with drones? But it moved. with a grace and purpose that ruled out both possibilities. I ran to wake my younger brother, Denny. Dragging him by the arm, we both stared out of the window. The orb began moving closer to the house, and its soft hum grew louder. The once tranquil blue light now felt invasive. Denny, always the brave one, suggested we go out to get a better look. We tiptoed downstairs, our footsteps muffled by the old wooden floor. The back door creaked open, and the cold night air hit our faces. The glow of the orb lit up the backyard, casting long shadows on the grass. As we approached the forest edge, we noticed something even more bizarre. Beneath the orb, standing at various points in the woods, were tall, slender figures. Their bodies emitted the same blue glow, and they seemed to be communicating with each other through a series of soft, melodic chirps. Terrified, I tugged at Denny's arm, urging him to retreat. But as if on cue, one of the figures turned its head in our direction. Its face was smooth, devoid of any features except for two large, black, almond-shaped eyes. It stared right at us. Suddenly, all the figures began moving towards us in a synchronized fashion, their movements fluid and graceful. Panic surged through me, and I yelled at Denny to run. We sprinted back to the house, the soft chirping now echoing loudly in our ears. Bursting through the back door, we slammed it shut and locked it. Racing upstairs, we peeked through my window. The figures had stopped at the forest's edge, seemingly unwilling or unable to cross into our yard. But the orb, it hovered even closer, right above our house, its hum vibrating through the walls. Hours seemed to pass. The figures remained still, their gaze fixed on our house, and the orb continued its unsettling hum. Denny and I huddled together, fearing what would come next. Then, as abruptly as it had started, the humming ceased. The blue light began to fade. One by one, the figures retreated into the forest, their glow disappearing with them. The orb rose higher into the sky, and then darted away at an incredible speed, vanishing in seconds. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, we tried telling our parents, but they brushed it off as a dream, or an overactive imagination. But we knew what we saw. We were left with a lingering fear and countless questions. Years went by, and the memory of that night faded. We never saw the orb or the figures again. But sometimes when the night is quiet and I'm alone in the dark, I hear the soft melodic chirping. And I can't help but wonder if they're still out there, watching and waiting.